I find that most of these sources are really only interested in selling you some sort of quick self help solution that addresses the actual problem. And I don't want to be one of those self help people that add to the pile. I just want to show you guys a closer look at what I think the real problem is. When I was a kid, movies used to feel like an event. I wasn't just into movies, I planned my day around it. The only way I was able to access movies was to either buy a ticket to a movie theater, rent it from a video store, or legally download it on a trustworthy movie store. And when I watched a movie when I was younger, even managing to get a hold of that movie was its own adventure. It had to be intentional. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say, oh, movies was for that event. That's actually not what I'm saying. Because I'll be honest, some movies that I enjoyed back then don't hold up at all. But I'm just saying I relate not just movies, but entertainment as a whole has completely shifted. Because now we have every movie, every show, every game you can ever want at a click of a button. Hell, most movies and shows are all released online right away. And even if they aren't, theaters only get a few weeks of exclusive showings before the studio rushes them onto streaming service. Because that's where the money really is. Shows are now released by the season rather than releasing them per episode. Video games come out before they're even complete and end up just loading a battle pass on there just to make some extra money. And not only that, but the quality of all of these entertainment mediums are higher than ever. And at the speed at which all of this content is constantly being pumped out every single day, it just increases by the day. And now we have an AI to make that process even faster. All of this entertainment right in front of me at my fingertips, ready to be watched or played whenever I so need. No more of that adventure to the rental store. It's just right there all the time. And yet, all of it just feels like background noise. I used to sit down and be able to commit my full attention. Now I seem to always be doing something while the movie is just happening near me. Especially when it comes to me watching a movie or a movie. I'd say 90% of the time I'm watching a movie and then playing a game on the other screen. I'm watching a movie and even watching a YouTube video on the other screen. I'm always half watching to the point that sometimes I don't even remember what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll pause the thing I'm doing and then look at my phone, and then 5, 10, 15, sometimes even 30 minutes pass by. I completely forgot that I was watching a movie. I'm playing it. Half the time I don't even know if I enjoyed it. I just know that it went through my eye. And this is not because entertainment has gotten boring or entertainment has just not gotten interesting. It just feels way harder to enjoy, especially on the side of the creator. See, how the world is now, whether you like it or not, everyone feels it necessary to make content out of everything you possibly can imagine. Take me, for example. I spent a lot of my career watching movies, playing games, and watching shows for the sole purpose of making content out of. It's hard for me to play a game, a movie, or watch a show and not have that in the back of my mind. You could be making a video. So you could be making content around this. Why are you wasting your time playing this game when you should be streaming it when you could be making a video? And I feel like that goes for so many people now. Even if it's not your job like it is for me, maybe you just really like this show and you really want to make a video about it. Maybe instead of just reading a book, you want to make a podcast about the book. Maybe you just played an incredible game, but now you want to make a video about it. Now, there isn't anything wrong with wanting to share your interest in it. But sometimes I feel like it takes away from your personal connection to the thing. And obviously, I personally have struggled with this greatly because of the vast amount of movie reviews I do on this channel. I'm not trying to tell everyone stop focusing on making content. That's not what I'm saying. But I guess maybe what I'm saying is not everything needs to be content. Not every opinion needs to be shared. And that's something I've been trying for myself. Sometimes you should just cherish your personal connection you have with someone. Because really, we all are just struggling with entertainment. Too many options have just broken our brain. The vast amount of views and movies, shows, games that are just being pumped out every second of every day. It gives that feeling of 1,000 channels with nothing to watch. Instead of choosing what you want to watch today, it's more about choosing what you should watch. Because it feels like I don't really watch things anymore. I just audition. You know, or maybe you watch clips on YouTube of a show just to make sure it's worth watching. Or maybe you just watch it whole element of, do I really want to waste my precious time watching this when I could be watching something better? Is this good? Is this good enough to watch? Is there something out there that is way better than this that I could watch? Should I be watching something else? Nothing can be special when everything is available instantly, because you always can be watching something better. There's always content that's going to be better than the thing that you're watching. Because when I was younger, we just had limited options. The games I got were always based on the console that I owned. And when I purchased a game, that was all I had. So I played the shit out of that game, regardless if that game happened to be the worst game ever or the best game ever. I played the shit out of it. I watched so many movies that were complete garbage, and I enjoyed it because that's just what we had. But now, since we have literally everything, it makes it so much harder to not only decide, but to enjoy, especially when it comes to critique. Because every form of media, every entertainment medium whatsoever is going to have loads and loads of comments of other people telling you, don't play this, don't watch this, it's awful. But you could look at you don't know. Or the opposite. Maybe everyone's telling you it's the greatest thing ever. You have to watch it, and then you watch it, and it sucks. And you don't like it. Entertainment is so optimized now with all of these algorithms in place that big corporations make to siphon all of your attention as much as physically possible. Hell, as a YouTuber, I have to pay attention to those things. Watch retention, books, the pacing of the video. Make sure I have constant stimulation throughout this video because I'm competing with everyone else who is also doing everything in their power to make that perfect formula to steal all of your attention, no matter the cost. And sure, we could all say that's innately evil. It's just how it is. Think of it as eating candy for every single day. Yeah, sure, it might taste good, but holy shit, is it bad for you? And eventually, that sweetness will dissipate. The big realization for me was when I didn't really enjoy single-player games as much as I used to. For a while, I thought, oh, it's just my preference of game. I prefer competitive games. It's just the type of person I am. But I started realizing it's not because of my preference. It's because competitive games give out quick and fast dopamine rushes. Oh, let me live, please. Whereas single-player story games tend to be slower. They build, and that dopamine happens over time. And the reason these single-player games even have slow portions is to build up the climax of the story. No one wants to hear the goddamn rising action anymore. No one wants to hear the introduction. They just want to skip straight to whatever the hell happens in the story. The amount of shorts and TikToks and Instagram reels out there of just spoiling movies, and people prefer just getting to the climax of the movie rather than building that up and watching the movie for themselves. And I'm not trying to be an old man being like, oh, it's the phones. Oh, it's the phone. Okay, maybe it's a little bit of the phones. And that's because the death, or should I say, the murder of boredom. How uncomfortable is it for you to be with that? No phone, no screens, no book, no nothing. Sitting there in silence with just your thoughts. It's not a good feeling, is it? You sit down in silence for 30 seconds tops and you instantly reach for your phone because it's comfort, because it's entertainment. Because for some reason we were trained to believe that boredom is bad. Boredom is not good. It's so weird. It's almost like society is trying to convince everyone that boredom is the enemy in order for everyone to think that they're supposed to be constantly stimulated. So in turn, we give out as much attention as we possibly can to corporations that make money off of our attention. But on the contrary, boredom is a very important thing. Boredom used to be a necessity. And not only that, but it was the reason everything felt more fun. It built anticipation. It made things hit harder. Without boredom, nothing builds. Without buildup, there's no payoff. Boredom isn't your brain failing to be entertained. It's just your brain saying nothing here is worth my attention. So let's look inwards. Your curiosity starts building. Imagination starts to wake up. Emotions get to breathe. Your brain starts thinking. The thing is, you never discover what you want when you're just constantly stimulated, when you don't give your brain a second to just think. But now, the moment we get bored, what do? We go straight to our phone, open an app. So that feeling of finding something to do or using that imagination never finishes forming. That desire doesn't have time to appear. Think of boredom as your veggies, your fruit, your chicken and rice. The stuff that you don't necessarily like, but you know it's good for you. In movies, games, shows, music, etc., are the desserts. You can't thoroughly enjoy the desserts if you don't eat dinner first. And hell, sometimes whenever you eat plenty of that main course, you don't even feel the need to eat dessert. And sometimes when you eat too many desserts, they lose their flavor. And that's what everyone's suffering. And another thing that boredom is great for is just learning more about yourself, which is another reason why it's very uncomfortable. No one wants to talk to themselves. No one wants to come to terms with maybe issues they have, or maybe internal things that they're dealing with, or maybe existentialism. When your entire existence is set up to eliminate boredom, you start to realize why boredom mattered in the first place. The meaning only comes from giving something back. Whenever something asks for nothing in return, it can't really change or affect you. Whenever you are passively scrolling through that content, you aren't really engaging in it. Push and pull. You don't remember things you don't have to show up for. I mean, just think about the last time you really focused on something for your entertainment. Like, really gave it your undivided attention. The second anything slows down, your brain always reaches for something to quell that. See, instead of trying to fall in love with something instantaneously, the moment you see it, maybe try to earn it. Instead, maybe let it cook. Now, I want to be clear here. I don't want this to be a self-help video. This isn't me telling you, throw out your phone, go out to the woods, live as a hermit. And same goes for me. I'm probably not going to be, getting rid of my phone, deleting apps or whatever. Who knows? Maybe I'll do that for a video or something. It's not really changing your habits. It's more of changing the perspective and changing how you treat entertainment. Like I always say, if you want a better climax, you better do that foreplay, baby. But thank you, everyone, for watching this video. Hope you have a good one.
This is FNAF Ransomware, one of FNAF's most popular and scary trends ever made. But what even is it? Is it even real? And how did we get here? Well, if you're brand new to the FNAF franchise, or if you know everything about it, FNAF Ransomware is a completely different and unique rabbit hole that not many people know what it's actually about. So that's why I'm going to explain and go over everything there is to know about this mysterious trend. Like why it blew up, why it is and isn't scary, and most importantly, why it is completely different compared to most other FNAF trends from the past, along with so much more. And in order to do this, we'll be taking a look at 15 different pieces of FNAF ransomware related media, such as FNAF ransomware videos, and so much more. So if you need something to put on in the background while you work, or if you want to take a look at some of FNAF's scariest fan-made content ever made, then this is the perfect video for you. But with all that out of the way, now I have to ask the question, what is FNAF Ransomware? FNAF Ransomware is a sub-genre of mythical horror, which contains the most game-playing version of fake, pirated, and or hacked versions of FNAF games. The idea of FNAF Ransomware most likely originated from the FNAF 2 secret virus, which has gained popularity in the past year. Being a supposedly real virus that would disguise as an old FNAF's old version that would hack your phone after being played. However, the video that exploded the trend as we know it as a fake is titled Five Nights at Freddy's Caves, also known as FNAF Ransomware, which he was posting got extremely popular for the disturbing images of the scene and the overall surrealism the video portrayed. The video starts out like a normal early 2010s YouTube/horror clips video, but the uploader was rushes, using our own memories to remind us of what we feared most at the time. So when the video eventually transitions to the gameplay portion, we have already been transported back to our younger selves point of view, with most of us not even realizing. And that's how it gets you. So as the video continues, the fear of computer viruses, scary games, loud noises, and the instinct to run to your mom crying for help, and fear as you did something you weren't supposed to, all come running back full speed. So when you see the logging off screen, a lot of the starting Windows screen, and eventually leads to ransomware screen, all of those feelings have taken effect, making this video arguably one of, if not the best uses of nostalgia horror I've ever seen, at least for the now. It blends everything seamlessly into one small compact video that gives you the same fear as a typical quote-unquote digital horror subgenre video would, while also adding that element of nostalgia to dive deeper into the horror shown. And this same vibe can be seen in another video, with that being Five Nights at Freddy's Very Mobile Forest. If you think Five Nights at Freddy's CD was scary, then that word bullet will traumatize you. As this video and its subsequent fan game is arguably the most terrifying rendition of fan-made FNAF-related media possibly created, with many of the commenters on this video agreeing. The video starts with text appearing on screen that says, "Hi guys, Freddy Fazbear fan here," with the text shortly disappearing to show new text, which says, "Today I'm playing FNAF before. Enjoy the video," which afterwards we are greeted by the main menu. Immediately we see a distorted version of Freddy, along with a sparking beat button, Russian text, and the main menu theme which consists of a low deep pulsating bass. The Russian, when translated, says something along the lines of endless telling Freddy, according to some commenters. As the video continues, the player clicks the start button which leads to this introduction for the game. Misfortune stuck on the button. Get dragged down to hell, and as you make your way
Re
This is hell. And this, the office, is where the protagonist has stumbled on their journey through the darkness. As the player looks around the office, you can see that they are shrouded by darkness, with the hallways being nothing but pure black, except for when they flash a light, where you can see the hallways are just a small corridor with a pitch black doorway at the end of it. But when a player closes the door, we realize the only thing keeping them safe is a thin see-through chain-link door, which doesn't look to have much durability to withstand whatever monsters are down here with the player. Even when looking straight forward in the office, we are still engulfed by the darkness seen surrounding the player, with the only bit of light and color seen in the office on the poster and desk in front of her. As the player finally opens the camera, we are greeted to the main stage area, where we can see completely distorted and dreamlike versions of the 3D animatronics, with Freddy being the only one to seemingly be intact, as Bonnie and Chica are missing a majority of their body, along with a majority of their facial features. As the player looks through more cameras, we are also greeted to Pirate's Cove, where we can see yet another distorted version of the animatronics, with that being a completely hellish looking Foxy, complete with piercing glowing white eyes and what seems to be an enlarged jaw. The sign in front of Pirate's Cove also seems to say something as well, with it most likely being a website name or a link to donate money to for the ransomware. As the player continues to switch through cameras, we are again back to the main menu show stage, where all hell breaks loose. The camera pushes for a split second to then show you shortly after.
Ow.
Lights flashes on screen saying "Fire away" as we now see the animatronics in the dining room. As the camera closes, they hear heavy, fast footsteps quickly approaching the player, and right before closing the left door, they are face to face with a demonic version of Bond. Not panic, the player opens the camera again to be greeted with Chica standing right next to their office, staring right at them. So after staring right back, the camera then again switches to Chica as he so in fear of being in the office, the player closes the camera and checks the door to then see her standing right there while growling. So after closing the door and getting out of the leave, the player again checks the camera to see how Foxy is doing, where text appears on the screen saying Foxy hasn't moved at all. AI is definitely buggy. Now this claim could just be attributed to the overall lack of quality seen in this report. But if you look closely at Foxy compared to the other animatronics, he looks to be jittery, as you can see him almost like the shaking from behind the curtain. It's not really anything substantial, but it's definitely interesting to say the least, because no other animatronics seem to do this. But anyways, after looking at Foxy, we get to see another scene.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
Closing in on the player, but that's until they take another good look at Alex Cove.
You gotta go up there.
After surviving Fox's attacks, along with another bodies, things start to get bizarre. As shortly afterwards, the living screen is completely covered by a pop-up that says this. Donate to www.somerussiantext to win 10% increase in Bitcoin. Along with text on Chica that says God loves you. The Russian text when translated supposedly says Baboon Dollar according to some commenters, which when Googling what that was, led me to multiple websites selling a new quote-unquote base Baboon. Now, I don't know if that's what this is supposed to be referencing, or if this is just a coincidence, but if it isn't, the amount of detail this ransomware video has to seem even more sketchy than diving into it makes it feel that much more real. But then right before this screen ends, you can just barely notice that it flashes blue for one frame. But if we look close, we can see a new piece of text hidden on the bottom left of the screen that seems to say God's love can't save you, which then upon disappearing plays back to normal gameplay. The uploader then puts more text on the screen saying, I don't know what that was, it happens a few times. But again, leading back to more gameplay footage where nothing noteworthy happens. 3 a.m. is kind of boring because all the animatronics disappear somewhere. Like, seriously, what if fun art is what the text on the screen says as for some reason the animatronics are gone and can't be seen anywhere on the cameras. But as the player is actively searching for them, another pop-up appears that says pirate links at www.bluegallery.com, which is even more confusing than the last pop-up. But then after this, we get another message from the uploader saying, 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. when you're bored, 5 a.m. however, and this is where all hell breaks loose.
Oh, shit. Hey. I've come to ransack your things. I've come to steal everything. Christ, there's more.
Final thoughts. I spent $4 for this crap. Very poorly ordered the now one. Nothing like OG. 4 out of 10. And with that, that is Five Nights at Freddy's Paranormal Horror. Arguably one of the scariest and most eerie pieces of FNAF media ever made. And I'm sure you can see why. From the introduction sequence where you can see the demonic version of what seems to be a puppet rise from the depths, to the overall aggression and speed these hungry monsters have to try and enter your office, because everything else seems failed.
Ooh.
There is a box to pull over, and to a very
Torches. Torches are good.
And well, one of them, they only wait 4 months for that thing to release as the business end. Now, you know how I mentioned this one horror earlier? Well, now we need to introduce yet another subgenre of horror, with that being religious horror. It's very self-explanatory to understand what it could represent, but for people who may not have an interest in religion or the genre as a whole, religious horror is a subgenre that primarily focuses on supernatural beings, such as demons, along with other aspects of religion, such as God, symbolism, hell, and many other things to form a story. This gives me the sense of FNAF overload, as what makes this game primarily terrifying is the fact that the player is trapped in hell, and most likely has no escape. Upon starting the game and loading into the main menu, the title text literally says Endless Hell right, immediately insinuating that the player will never be able to escape. Then, when the start button is pressed, the beginning prologue further reinforces that belief by doubling down on it. We don't know how the player managed to get dragged down into hell. We don't know how the player was able to make their way through the dark. We simply just don't know. But that's until we read the text and wonder if you are alone, where we begin to wonder that exact question until more text appears that says you soon find out you are not. That one line of text is all it takes to raise the stakes and to make us, the viewers, be filled with dread. Then, as the rest of the text appears, we also begin to see intelligible versions of the supposed monsters that are down here in hell with us. We can only faintly make out which animatronic is which, but this combined with that they are hungry and will do whatever it takes to eat is all it takes for us to know that this is not your ordinary FNAF game. Then, once the game begins, it follows the typical FNAF ransomware formula, with simple imagery, random pop-up ads, and even the uploader adding in text embedded into inform the viewers of things. But that's until we get to 5 a.m., which is arguably the most terrifying part of this video, as it throws out everything we've come to know about this game straight out the window. Once the clock hits 5 a.m., we are deafened by the sound of FNAF 1 service endings, and so is the player, panicking to find out what's going on, until we see all the animatronics in the dining room camera.
Big village, not much. Not much here.
Then it zips out of view on camera, made even more startling by the aggressive sound of the circus music blaring in our ears again. So as the player switches cameras to find the puppet creature, we can see it fly down the hallway at such a speed that its signaling is blown up camera for a split second. The player then closes the finger too close to doors, and that's when we see it staring right at us with the change in defense. It's on both sides of the door, and on all cameras at the same time. This thing is clearly not of this world and can only be supernatural, as if it's a demon of hell itself doing anything it can to get in. The prologue seems to forget to mention that there was a fifth monster, and that this one looks in among us, which could have been done on purpose to throw off the player, as the narrator for the prologue seems to be the puppet creature itself. But as the player continues to survive the onslaught of attacks from the puppet, a power then comes out, where for a split second we see it in our office. Then two white eyes measures in the darkness looking like it's ready to feed, but then the clock hits 6 a.m. and the nightmare is over. And still the rain screen appears and the player gets all their data stolen. But even though this is all this video has to offer, there is still one more thing to take a look at, and that is the description. For a bit, I think I can put together what this is supposed to be. And surprisingly, I feel like my explanation could be right. I believe this description describes the FNAF fandom and our landscape as a whole, especially the digital horror aspect of it. So if we replace some words and translate this description to make it make a little bit more sense of what I'm trying to describe, then I believe it will make a lot more sense for the rest of you. That's how I look at this description, as a cryptic reminder of what the digital horror has become, with that being an empty hollow shell of itself, filled with routine tropes and unoriginality. But that's why this description works well for this video, as it calls out the other pieces of content in this niche that continue those tropes and stereotypes seen in these types of videos. But FNAF Report, well, it does stand out, and the reason it does is because it decided to break the norm. Even though it follows the fantastic trend, it decided to take a rather unconventional approach to its themes and overall story. Sure, this is a ransomware game, but the time and effort put into this game almost makes it stand out from the rest, as this one has a story, has unique gameplay, and most importantly, seems to have way more going on behind the scenes. And as you'll see as we continue on throughout this whole video, this description holds a lot of merit.
Alright, I gotta get out of here.
Looking at are a one-to-one summarization of this description. Sure, this could totally just be me overanalyzing this video, along with this description, as in all reality, this video is just a shitpost. But it is done in such a way that there's so much that can be said about it, and for the most part, I think I have said everything I needed to about this video. But we will be coming back to this video later on, as shortly after this video was made, someone decided to make a fan game about it, which is just as terrifying as the video. But we will get to that in time, as we're going over FNAF Ransomware videos in this video. But the next one we're going to be taking a look at is the one that started it all, with that being FNAF 2 Stingray. Also, make sure to like the video if you want a part 2 of this one with the FNAF Ransomware fan games, as I might be doing that. But anyways, let's get to FNAF 2 Stingray. There are no other videos or pieces of media in this video as influential as FNAF 2 Stingray, as this is the legend was creating FNAF Ransomware into what it is today. Now, I've already made 2 videos of the backstory behind FNAF 2 Stingray, and rather not sound like a broken record, so if you want to educate yourself on anything there is to know about this virus, I'll link those 2 videos at the end of this one, because we'll only be taking a look into the original video footage that was posted online. But we can't just go over this video of FNAF 2 Stingray without going over what it is, as it won't make much sense without context. FNAF 2 Stingray was said to be a real fake FNAF 2 port that contained a type of virus in it that would act like a ransomware, where when downloading this fake pirated Trojan that presented itself as FNAF 2, it would infect your device after playing it and steal your data. But the footage we are about to go over is supposedly real footage of what would occur while playing the game. Now, there is way more to the story and virus as a whole, and this doesn't even scratch the surface of it. But as I said, we will just be looking at this quote-unquote supposedly real footage of FNAF 2 Stingray for this video. So if you're still interested in learning more about this virus, you can watch the other videos I made about it after this one is done. But before you do that, let's take a look at this footage. Now, the English version has seemingly been deleted from YouTube, as all I could find was a Spanish dub version of it, which is the exact same as the original, except that it has Spanish-only text and is sped up at certain parts. But apart from those things, it is still the original video, so we'll be taking a look at this one. The video starts with footage of the FNAF 2 World Report main menu, where we can see a black box opening animatronics covering the original English text, along with Spanish text underneath that when translated says,
"Hello there. If you are here, you are looking for the quote-unquote box FNAF 2 APK. That's what you are about to see. Enjoy."
Where then afterwards, the player clicks the start button. As the newspaper screen shows, another Spanish text box appears covering where the original English text was, where it says,
"I'm gonna skip to the end. It only happens at the end."
Where afterwards, we see the video fast forward all the way to the end of Night 5, where this happens. sometimes put a spin in editing, where everything that happens from this game is sort of random, where this feels like black, and the player is adjusted by a PNG opposing figure with no eyes, followed by the screen going rapidly turning black while the cartoon black plays in the background. The game spawns 29 coronavirus and basically started the ransomware trend, as no video-related media ever showed anything like this. And even now, people still don't know where the jump scaring is. And media never showed anything like this. And even now, people still don't fully understand where this came from. I mean, this writing is so popular that people don't even bother to mention the end of the video. Or as this video goes on, the audio continues to get more and more corrupted until the music finally stops, where we can see a very audible voice begin to speak. Now, I can't understand the first couple of words that are spoken, but I can make out what the voice says afterwards. And if you listen closer, you hear it say, I'm gonna catch your phone and say goodbye. So this then repeats a couple of times until the final text message appears that mentions the word jump scare. People don't even bother to read any of the stuff, as the change of tables is already on top of the up. And since the first thing is with exactly means there's not much news talking about it, the overall simplicity of it is what makes it scary. And that whole privilege, I think is what made it so popular. There are zero other ransomware videos like this that are associated with any sort of created legend, myth, hoax, or whatever you want to call it online. And there are zero that end up being this influential in doing so. The feeling that this could be real and could have been something that might have accidentally stumbled upon as a kid is terrifying. And this goes back to the nostalgic core I mentioned earlier. In every video I've made on the Master Story, I've had tons of comments mentioning that as a child, I think about all in that past, they were just with the sketch books and examples of how versions of games and here's how music starts to really with the name Pitfall, because this under all of fun to the consistency of the and the legend is so much more scary. The fact that more people were so easy to fall victim to the virus because, especially as children, a lot of people felt so invisible in the natural story, is why it's personally one of my favorites. But there's also it sits evenly across. I was sitting in his bed watching Facebook on TV, but after refreshing the homepage, the title of the thumbnail came up and it immediately caught my eye. I remember clicking on the video, confused but also intrigued. And as I continued to watch the video, a sick state, I remember being hit with a feeling of dread and unease. Then, as the video reached the halfway point, that's when I vividly remember being exposed to what happened in the video, and I'll never forget it. This was around February of 2024, right around the time this video was posted, and before everyone was desensitized to this sort of content. I don't know, it just struck a chord within me that I thought I had forgotten, but the childhood fear of everything I mentioned in the first segment, such as the loud noises, scary games, and other irrational fears, just hit me like a truck for some reason. Maybe it was because I was sick, but maybe it's because it was something I once feared and could relate to, at least as a child. So let me show you what I mean. The video starts with the low quality main menu of FNAF 2 Free Edition, where we can see a poorly cropped render of Withered Freddy's head, along with some typical misspelled and misplaced menu options. And after sitting on the screen for a little bit, the player eventually starts the game. But right before the game transitions into gameplay, we see the Freddy head lose its eyeballs and turn completely gray for a split second before we are shown the night 1 screen, where it instead says 1 night, 1 o'clock. After this screen, the player is finally brought to the gameplay section, where there is absolutely nothing except a compressed image of the office. Then that's when the camera screen opens to show a monochrome low quality version of the main hall, which after viewing for a couple seconds, the player closes. Now, I'm not sure if the player is actually playing here, as there are no buttons to be seen anywhere on screen, so for as far as we know, the game could be controlling itself, which is a terrifying thought. So regardless if that's the case or not, the camera opens up again to the main hallway, except this time there is a low quality PNG image of Withered Freddy, which is also missing his eyes and he's gray, just like the game I think So again, the camera closes and we're brought back to the office, except this time the map to chase in is explored, and all of a sudden, the same Freddy seen on the cameras appears. The player then quickly puts on the mask to try and avert his attack, but is unsuccessful and get jumpscared by the Freddy and head quickly out of the game. This is text that the uploader added after the jumpscare, as after that had happened, the player's game subsequently crashed. So again, the player looks at the game and clicking start this time, or whatever button starts the game, we see this. After clicking start again, the player is instead sent to the beginning of the night cutscene, where after looking around for some time, the golden Freddy standing in front of them transforms into the Freddy from the main menu and the one that attacked the player. And right as this happens, all audio cuts out and is instead replaced by an ear-piercing long natural humming. Then afterwards, the audio stops again and is replaced with the breathing voice that can be heard over in the past in the game. All while the right split screen shows in the background, where it says
You idiot. It was the people who hired you. There is no way to play this game straight. Everybody must appear those night. One day remains.
right before the video ends. Now, looking back on this video, there are definitely way more scary iterations of FNAF Freddy's 4 out there. But for the time, and for being one of the first pieces of content regarding this trend, I have to say it's not that bad. This video definitely falls under the shitpost category more than the non-shitpost category, but so do a lot of other FNAF Friends 1 videos. It's just that this one falls under the category way more than others. But that's why this one is one of my favorites. It was one of the first, and for a small time, it scared me. But now we can look back at it and laugh and see how far the community has gotten with their ideas and so forth related to this niche. As this video doesn't have much to dive deep into, it's just an ordinary Redsmart video, and it follows the formula to a T. But just like a financial state rating, its simplistic concept worked for the time and did well. But looking back, it could have definitely had some improvements, just like the next video we'll be looking at. With that Named FNAF 3 ransomware/malware. Now, upon first glance, this video doesn't seem like it has any notable needs for improvement, but just like the last video, I would say that once this video gets past the halfway mark, it too falls under the shitpost category for FNAF ransomware videos. But I will say, the first half of this video is actually really good in my opinion, as it feels way more grounded in reality than what a real ransomware or virus game would look like, at least when it comes to fake FNAF game viruses. And let me show you what I mean. The video starts with some text that says,
I found an injury that got you version on sketchy website.
which then transitions into the main menu for this ransomware version of FNAF 3. Now, I am sure you can immediately see what I mean when I mention that this video feels way more grounded in reality. Unlike all the other videos we've looked at so far, it has yet to look at. This video is the only one that has a normal menu screen when playing the game, at least at first glance. The menu has a normal layer screen travel from the same text and evenly goes with text just in the middle menu. But after staring at it for long enough, you'll realize that it doesn't say FNAF 3, but instead says FNAF 15 there. And the copyright at the bottom doesn't have Scott's name on it, as it has been blurred out. This is a more accurate representation of what a fake score of a game would try to replicate. It wouldn't be all spooky and didn't remind enough of Earthing at all. It would instead literally just be a copy and paste of the actual game, so that the player wouldn't know that they were playing a fake version. But then all that subtlety seemingly gets ruined once the game transitions into the newspaper screen, as we are put into a blurred out version of the newspaper, where we can see that the text is mostly smudged and that Freddy is missing his eyes. I just realized that for some reason these videos love to get rid of Jeremy's eyes for some reason. I don't know if there's a deeper reason behind it, whether it be to make them more scary or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's to make more of a shitpost. But please let me know why you guys think they do these in these videos, because it's a reoccurring trend for some reason. Anyways, the newspaper then fades away to the night one screen, where it glitches out and again it turns into a bunch of garbled text. Again, the screen fades out and goes to normal gameplay, but the night one text is still glitched out for some reason. But that's when the player opens the monitor, and we can see that it doesn't have an animation for when it was opened. It kind of just faded into existence. So after using the reset button for a minute, the player finally closes the monitor and mishaps. After being jumpscared by a poorly crafted PNG screen then goes black, where after a few seconds of waiting, the player is brought back to the main menu, where it is now poorly crafted and compressed. The same goes with the newspaper screen, as after clicking the play button again, we can see that this screen is also cropped and drawn. But then when we are brought to the night one screen, it isn't poorly cropped, but is instead normal until it again glitches out. But then once we transition to gameplay, this is what we see. video effects looked scary, and even the most important part of a ransomware video wasn't scary, but that being the ransomware screen itself. Sure, it definitely looks low quality, like a ransomware screen should, and it usually does. But that's not the issue here. The issue is that it just wasn't scary. Now, I will say that at least the ransomware text is pretty funny. Yeah, this video isn't anything too special and definitely needs some improvements looking back on it. But again, like the last video we looked at, it was aired on the beginning of the trend, so they did the best they could. And honestly, that's kind of all that matters at the end of the day. But since there weren't many videos back then to take inspiration from or get ideas from, I will say that this video did take some inspiration from another video posted around that same time frame. But that being a video simply titled FNAF Ransomware. Well, this video used some of these same sound effects and ideas as this one, and you'll see what I mean. Just like FNAF 2 Free Edition, FNAF 3 Ransomware was also one of the first pieces of media related to this trend that I experienced. And just like FNAF 2 Free Edition, this video holds a special place in my heart, as the imagery seen in this video has never left my mind since the day I've seen it. And there's a good reason on why that is. Just from the main media ever showed anything like this. And even now, people still don't know where the jumpsuit image came from. I mean, this part of the video is so popular that people don't even bother to mention the end of the video, where as this video goes on, the audio continues to get more and more corrupted until the music finally stops, or we hear a very audible voice on Game Coach's beat. Now, I can't understand the first words that are spoken, but I can make out what the voice is happening is. And as closely behind, it's saying, I have had to call and say goodbye. But this then repeats a couple of times until the final text box appears that mentions the couple jump scare. People don't even bother to bring any of this up, as the cheeky jump scare is already iconic enough. And since the rest of the video gets corrected afterwards, there's not much use in talking about it. The overall simplicity of this video is what makes it scary, and that along with the urban legend behind it is what made it so popular. There are zero other ransomware videos like this that are associated with and or created that are legend, myth, hoax, or whatever you want to call it online. And there are zero that ended up being as influential in doing so. The feeling that this could be real and could have been something you might have accidentally stumbled upon as a kid is terrifying. And this goes back to the nostalgic horror mentioned earlier. In every video I've made on FNAF 2 Stingray, I've had tons of comments mentioning that as a child, to get around the paywall FNAF has, they would just go to sketchy websites to download free-card versions of the games. And to hear these commenters express or bringing up that they could have fallen victim to a virus like this on their own phones is what makes this specific video and urban legend so much more scary. The fact that real people could have so easily fallen victim to a virus like this, especially as children, along with the overall simplicity and mystery of FNAF 2 Stingray, is why it's personally one of my favorites. But there's also another super underrated early pioneer of FNAF Ransomware that continued to follow in the same footsteps as FNAF 2 Stingray, also being another one of my favorite videos, with that being FNAF 2 Free Edition Ransomware. Unlike Five Nights at Freddy's CDs, FNAF 1 Grand Mobile Port, and FNAF 2
Okay.
Stingray, this is the first video we take a look at that isn't part of the big three. And what I mean by
Okay.
that is that as we continue to look at more videos and say everything we can about them, we'll start to look at more that have flown under the radar, along with some videos that aren't even publicly available for viewing, such as FNAF 2 Free Edition Ransomware. And this was one of my first experiences with the trend, as I vividly remember this video being the first instance of me learning how to use it. I was sitting and was in bed watching a YouTube on my TV, when after refreshing the homepage, the title of the thumbnail came up and it immediately caught my eye. I remember clicking on the video, confused but also intrigued. And as I continued to watch the video on a 6th day, I remember being hit with the feeling of dread upon ease. Then, once the video reached the halfway point, that's when I vividly remember getting goosebumps due to what happened in the video. And I'll never forget it. This was around February of 2024, right around the time this video was posted. And before everyone was desensitized to this sort of concept, I don't know, it just struck a chord within me that I had forgotten. The childhood fear and intervention. First segment, such as loud noises, scary games, and other irrational fears, just hit me like a shot for some reason. Maybe it was because I was sick, but maybe it's because it was something I once feared and could relate to, at least as a child. So let me show you what I mean. The video starts with the low quality main menu of FNAF 2 Free Edition, where we can see a golden crumbed render with a friend's head, along with some typical misspelled and misplaced menu options. And after staying on the screen for a little bit, the player eventually starts the game. But right before the game transitions into gameplay, we see the Freddy head lose its eyeballs and turn completely gray for a split second before we are shown at one screen, where it instead says one night, 1 o'clock. After this screen, the player is finally brought to the game section, where there is absolutely nothing except a compressed image of the office. Then that's when the camera screen opens to show a modified low quality version of the main hall, which after gets the player innocence. Now, I'm not sure if the player is actually playing here, as there are no buttons to be seen anywhere on screen. So far as we know, the game could be controlling itself, which is a terrifying thought. So regardless if that's the case or not, the camera opens up again to the main hallway, except this time there is a low quality PNG image of Waiter Freddy, which is also missing his eyes and is gray, just like the main menu version was. So the camera closes and we are brought back to the office, except this time the FNAF who chased the and all of a sudden, the same Freddy seen on the cameras appears. The player then quickly puts on the mask to try and avoid his attack, but is unsuccessful when they get jump scared by Freddy and completely out of the game. The detect says one player died after the jump scare, as after that happened, the player's game section button crashed. So again, the player goes in the game and clicking start this time for whatever button starts the game, we see
Hmm.
After clicking start again, the player is instead sent to the beginning with a cutscene, where after moving around for some time, the golden Freddy standing in front of them transforms into the Freddy from the main menu and the one that attacked the player. And right as this happens, all audio cuts out is instead replaced by the earpiece. Afterwards. And if you listen closely, right as this happens, all audio cuts out and is instead replaced by the clear music on the original recording. Then afterwards, the audio stops again and is replaced with a breathing noise that can be heard over a fascinating game. All while the red sort of screen shows in the background, where it says,
You begin his unrevealed talents out here. This is always a quick spring. Everybody learn up here goes night night. Please prepare to one day remains.
right before the video ends. Now, looking back on this video, there are definitely way more scary iterations of FNAF games that are out there. But for the time, and for pinpointing the absolute the concept regarding this genre, I have to say it's not that bad. This video definitely falls under the shitpost category more than the non-shitpost category, but so do a lot of other FNAF videos. It's just that this one falls under the category way more than others. But that's why this one is one of my favorites. It was one of the first, and for a small time, it scared me. But now we can look back at it and laugh and see how funny this guy with ideas and so forth with it in his speech. As this video doesn't have much to dive deep into. It's just an ordinary video, and it follows the formula to a T. But just like FNAF Stingray, its simplistic concept worked for the time and did well. But looking back, it could have definitely had some improvements, just something nice to be looking at, with that being FNAF to the ransomware slash malware. Now, upon first glance, this video doesn't seem like it has any notable needs for improvement. But just like the last video, I would say that once this kind of gets past the halfway mark, it too falls under the shitpost category for the average videos. But I will say, the first half of this video is actually really good in my opinion, as it feels way more grounded in reality for what a real ransomware or virus game would look like, at least when it comes to fake FNAF game viruses. And let me show you what I mean. The video starts with some text that says,
I doubt it. Version on this website.
the screen transitions into the main menu of the transfer version of FNAF 3. Now, I'm sure you can immediately see what I mean when I mention that this video feels way more grounded in reality. Unlike all the other videos we've looked at so far, and caveat by that, this video is the only one that has a normal menu screen when running the game, at least at first glance. The menu has a normal version of screen trap, the same text, and even the glitching effects, just like the real menu. But after staring at it for long enough, you'll realize that it doesn't say FNAF 3, but instead says FNAF 53. And the copyright at the bottom doesn't have Scott's name on it, as it has been blurred out. This is a more accurate representation of what a fake port of the game would try to replicate. It wouldn't be all spooky and differently booted up, or even at all. It would instead really just be a copy and paste of the actual game, so that the player wouldn't know that they were playing a fake version. But then all that subtlety seemingly gets ruined once the game transitions into the screen, as we're referring to a blurred out version of the newspaper. You can see that the text is mostly smudged, and that Freddy is missing his eyes. I just realized that for some reason these videos want me to get rid of his eyes for some reason. I don't know the reason behind it, whether it means anything more scary or whatever. I don't know. I guess I'm shit posting. Well, please let me know what you guys think of these videos because it's really good to try this. Anyways, the newspaper then fades away to the night on screen, where it glitches out at the end and it turns into a bunch of purple text. Again, the screen fades out and goes to normal gameplay. The nightfall text is still glitched out just basically, but then the player opens the honor, and you can see that it doesn't have an animation for when it was open. It kind of just faded into existence. So after using the reset buttons properly, the player finally puts the monitor when this happens. After being jumpscared by a poorly crafted PNG screen trap, the screen then goes black, where after a few seconds of waiting, the player is brought back to the main menu, where it is now poorly crafted and pressed. The same goes for the newspaper screen, as after clicking the play button again, you can see that this screen is also cropped and gone. But then when we return to the screen, it isn't one crop, but is instead normal until it again glitches out. But then once we transition to the gameplay, this is what we see. And that was the end of the video. This video isn't the best, but it also isn't the worst. It is just missing a certain piece that I can't really put my finger on. And it's personally, this video just isn't that interesting. Sure, the beginning of it was interesting, even though it was slow. And that's because it was slow. It wasn't all in your face, and it wasn't something that immediately scared you. Instead, it was something that was slow burn. And so all that suspense was immediately ruined by the newspaper screen. It should have also been normal, except with maybe a small changes to start to build that sense of dread up. Because if it did do that, it would have made the game for the second game more interesting. If the video decided to keep the unsettling subtle vibe to it, to where you know that something is wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it, it would have made the video actually suspenseful instead of boring. And it would have made the jump scare that happens afterwards way more scary. Then everything that happens afterwards was kind of just split. Now, I know horror is subjective, but the video just wasn't that scary. The imagery wasn't scary, the audio effects weren't scary, and even the most important part of the ransomware video wasn't scary. But that's even the ransomware screen itself. Sure, it definitely looks nice. Ransomware screen should, and it usually does. But that's not the issue here. The issue is that it just wasn't scary. Now, I will say that at least the ransomware text is pretty funny.
Dad. FNAF, this version is a free trial. It is not paid for real one. See my Instagram page. Please pay $240 in Bitcoin currency. Or take it and you're gonna be deleted.
Yeah, this video isn't anything too special, and definitely needs some improvements looking back on it. But again, like the last video we looked at, it was made around the beginning of the trend, so they did the best they could. And honestly, that's kind of all that matters at the end of the day. But since there weren't many videos back then to take inspiration from, or get ideas from, I will say that this video did take some inspiration from another video posted on that same time frame. Like happening usually something titled FNAF the Ransomware, where this video used some of these same sound effects and ideas as this one, and you'll see what I mean. Just like FNAF 2 Free Edition, FNAF 3 Ransomware was also one of the first pieces of media related to this trend that I experienced. And just like FNAF 2 Free Edition, this video holds a special place in my heart, as the imagery seen in this video has never impressed my eyes since the day I've seen it. And there's a good reason on why that is. Just from the beginning alone, which can be seen at the beginning of the video, it is nothing but an image of a newspaper picture screen along with a fully copied blurred version of Bonnie, with text overlay that says Jackson is X-23, play in release. This movement, and more specifically, this image of Bonnie has been engraved in my memory for some strange reason. It's not because the design is overly scary or anything along the lines of that. Well, I personally think it's because my brain is trying to figure out what I'm staring at. Now, yes, I know that it's Bonnie, but the blurriness, along with the fact he's missing his ears, is dirty, and looks to have fades and eyes, is why I believe I cannot shake this image from my head. And I think that is due to the phenomenon known as the uncanny valley. Now, I've brought this concept up before in previous videos I've made, but the reason I bring up the uncanny valley here is because this image of Bonnie, along with another character that we see near the end of FNAF the Ransomware, that matches the description of what the uncanny valley is, and why I think I haven't been able to forget this image from my head. Also, if you don't know what the uncanny valley is, or just need a quick explanation, the uncanny valley is a phenomenon where something that almost looks human, but not quite human, triggers a sense of dread or discomfort. And the same can be said to this very body. We know that it's body, but something's just off about it. And since our body tries to fill the gaps, especially since it is blurry and painful to it, it creates that sense of dread and discomfort. But as the video continues, that same concept of our bodies filling in place will become way more apparent. So instead of just trying to explain to you, how about I show you? Now, you see why I felt the need to explain the uncanny valley, along with all that stuff about your mind feeling useless and support? Maybe so, maybe not. But for me, after seeing every gap that's shown, I think the reason I like this video so much is because of the fact that the mind tries to fill in the gaps. From the moment we get loading screen to the moment we see the 4 a.m. first panic screen, to of course the moment we see gameplay, they're both incredibly confused as nothing makes sense. Like, why is there a silence on the top left of the screen? Why is it 4 p.m.? Why is the phone speaking up? What does it mean first time? And most importantly, what is hiding emphasize the screen gets stuck when you're moving and press. Well, we figured that out pretty quickly, as shortly after roller coaster, we see this almost human-like version of Spacecraft appear in the shadows, and as he stares at us, the screen finally goes black, where again, it pins from thought somewhere until the player's computer shuts off, where the screen again goes black. Then shortly after, we see the computer begins to boot up, and when it does, we are greeted to this. There he is again, staring at us from the darkness. You can't quite make out his features, but if your eyes are trained to anything in your mind, Starcraft's face looks fully human, with two light pixel eyes staring right at us. If this video never featured me as the user Spacecraft or a body, I don't think it would have gotten as popular as it did, as these images are absolutely amazing at provoking the pain, dread, discomfort, and uncanny valley it gives you. And many of the commentaries on this video look great. Now, this is probably just me looking too raw into it, like I've been doing for the rest of the video so far, but I honestly think it's a fair opinion, as it almost gives off energy vibes in a way. But I suppose most of these videos do. This video looks like one of those how much feels like to take 10 Benadryl and then play FNAF 3 right after, or get a lobotomy while playing FNAF 3. Honestly, I don't know. That's like the best way I can explain it. But yeah, I still don't think I'll ever take a Spacecraft or body like ever. So but you know what else I'll never forget? Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Ransomware Plus video. Yeah, these videos all have a lot of the same names, but trust me, this ain't gonna make your career last 2 years, okay? And it will be the last FNAF ransomware video you look at, as all the users are getting using and yeah, so yeah. Now, as I said, this is a video I'll never forget, as this includes various episodes from the movie You Could Have Ransomware 1, and it even has scenes where Albrecht's in any series that can only see if the character surveys your activator. This, along with the fact that this video is in a series of videos created by Paul Byrne, gives the whole ARG feel to it, and is really sleek and intro. Unlike other videos in the collection, this one doesn't just immediately show footage of the gameplay, but instead has the uploaded talk from the audience as if they were actively trying to uncover and solve the mystery behind these ransomware pains. Now, I could just be interpreting the context of this intro wrong, but I'm sure you guys will correct me if I am, so please do. Because the video starts with the uploader thanking the users on a previous ransomware video they have made called Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Ransomware to the Los Angeles Bayside area, where afterwards they mentioned that these videos can take a long time to make and he really appreciates the support. So after this quick thanks from the audience, the uploader mentions that FNAF 3 and 4 have been found, except that FNAF 4 is an exe file, and that the uploader wants to download and really see what is in the files. But then he mentions that they have the FNAF 3 footage, and that's what we are about to see. Now, before I get into the footage, this is what I mean when I say either making a series or an ARG or something along those lines. I can't tell if the uploader is playing a character, especially when they were thanking the audience, or if that is actual thanks for the hard work they did making the ransomware video itself. Because right after that, they immediately mentioned FNAF 3 and 4 ransomwares, so I can't tell if this is all supposed to be a character or what, but that's my best guess. Because honestly, regardless of what the actual answer is, it isn't too foreign to the actual content we see in the gameplay. So let's finally take a look at that. The gameplay footage starts with the movie 1's portal into the main menu, where we can see what looks to be the normal FNAF menu, except that it's missing the continue button, abruptly copyrighted at the bottom of the screen. Also, the music on PlayStation cut version of the main menu theme, which makes the screen all the bit more disturbing, and the music even continues into the computer screen. Now, this is the gig where some ARG elements come into play, as if you don't know what is happening in the game, there will occasionally be text that appears in the set subtitles, like how there is on this screen. A bit more disturbing, and the music even continues into the computer screen. Now, this is a gig where some ARG elements come into play, as if you have subtitles on while watching this video, there will occasionally be text that appears in the set subtitles, like how there is on this screen. For instance,
Over and over. And for the first time in years, PS3 was body and further.
now this could also just be the uploader repeating the response screen, since that would also make sense due to the low quality of the footage. But again, neither is the creature, and it doesn't really matter in the context of this video. So as this screen fades into gameplay, well, what does this have to show you as an effect? Now, I'm usually not one to swear in my videos, but all I can say after seeing that is, well, what the fuck? This video might not be as well put together as, say, I don't know, like FNAF or Mobile Court, but it sure as hell is just as terrifying. This video is similar to the last videos, okay? And it was too very subtle at the beginning. Nothing looks particularly wrong. And if you never had any experience playing FNAF prior, you would probably think it's normal. Sure, the camera show looks in some games, the game lags heavily, there's no phone guy, and night goes by extremely quick. But I mean, apart from that, there isn't really anything else to call about it until after the 6 a.m. screen, where we see what looks to be a red version of screen time begins darkness. When I first saw this, I thought it was just going to be a repeat of the last video we looked at, where we just see a creepy, disturbing version of Springtrap and blah blah blah, whatever. But that's when the text begins to appear. Or if we have something wrong, we can read what they say.
You want to know why I can see you on a different glass forever? Okay.
Or it begins to violently twitch out on the screen, all while the background noise is progressively more aggressive.
What kind of cause, man? What kind of damage?
Or the violently slip cuts before the motion becomes frantic. Or the annoying extremes of the earlier scene, before the gameplay and then the emotions really begin to progress as the PC shuts down. But not before we are face to face with the same red screen trap yet again. So after the PC shuts down, and as the video continues, the PC boots back up, where we can finally see the same screen, where we can see a small portion of Sanctuary's face nearly bounded by the big giant red spots on the screen. And that is the video. There's not much to say about it, except for the fact that it is extremely disturbing. And it's mainly in part due to the fact that your mind has to fill in the gaps, just like it did for the last video. Now, I'm not going to go crazy in depth on why it's scary and why this video works, because honestly, I'm sure all you guys have different reasons, but I think the main reason this video is scary, at least for me, and I don't know about you guys, is because it's basically, well, the same reason as the last video. So the mind fills in the gaps and yada yada yada. So since we just looked at 3 different iterations of Threads for FNAF 3, and since they're all kind of scary for the same reasons, let's finally get a breath of fresh air and look at a FNAF 4 ransomware video, simply called FNAF 4 Age Adventure, Ransomware Game. This is the only ransomware video video I had ever seen that I wish never classified itself as a piece of FNAF ransomware because it could have worked so much better to make it sound honest as say, I don't know, like a normal FNAF or co-op game or even creepypasta. This video is not talking about text that says,
Hey Johnny, I found this free version of FNAF for Hatron that looks pretty weird, and I wanted to show you guys the gameplay that I have of it and how the serving so working for me.
where we then see the home screen of the upload scrolling down the bottom. This arrow icon shows the FNAF logo, but before it is green, it is missing his teeth and eyes. Well, the rest of the icon is on. So when they open the Windows game, this is the first thing we see. Water. Alrighty then. This main menu looks the exact same as the normal FNAF menu, except that it has a artifact named Princess Hazel on the bottom left. This is what I mean by what I said earlier. This video feels more like a creepypasta or something similar to FNAF, or more importantly, rather than ransomware. And sure, this can be said for probably every other video we've looked at so far, but the way this one is presented and the way the introduction goes really sets up that creepypasta-like feel. Just from how this game is introduced, to how it looks into how the gameplay is, it feels more like a hacked version of FNAF than a ransomware. This feeling of the game being working to say a ROM hack rather than a ransomware also helps make it feel more like a creepypasta as well, since a majority of gaming creepypastas feature ROM hacks to tell their stories. ROM hacks are, in simple terms, a modified version of a video game created by altering which would essentially create a new game from the base code. And as I continue to show this video, it becomes more apparent that this definitely should have been the angle the creator of this video should have took, as it feels like it would have fit way better. So after the player clicks the start button, this is what the player sees. Gameplay is completely normal after everything happens game, with the player just playing the game as you normally would. But if you listen closely, you can hear the grandfather clock in the background on loop, along with the faint sound of someone saying, "I hate you." This repeating phrase plays with the whole night. It is extremely unnerving. Like I'm talking about this right now, I'm ripping my script right now, and it's giving me goosebumps just from remembering it. Like that's I don't know, it's creepy. And it doesn't help too that even at like some points of the audio, you can hear almost little bullets sound in the voice. Each time I have to watch this video to write this script, and even reading it out right now, it just gives me goosebumps more times than I can count. It just the voice just doesn't sound natural at all. It barely even sounds human. And especially with those weird moaning noises it makes, it's just I don't know, it just activates something in me. But anyways, after around 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the video, the creepy voice is somewhat blacked out when the screen turns a dark red, and all the noises become grainy. Despite the screen becoming all messed up, the player still manages to play the game. And as they do so, a message appears on screen saying, "Welcome on your phone," which makes absolutely no sense. Before I get this message appears on screen, extremely disturbing, too cliche and well, not aesthetic. I'm not even going to go over the ransomware screen for this video because it literally is just the same as all the others. And honestly, I personally rather not because the ransomware part of this video is really weird. And I'd rather just kind of forget about it. The video has such a great set, being genuinely just creepy. as it was still it wasn't over the top. I mean, the game was literally completely normal except for the creepy whispering and explaining the story near the end. It literally felt like a creepy monster villager in that word ordered for. And honestly, that video is why I believe it worked. Going back to FNAF 1 Original Report and why that video works so well is because it never claimed to be a ransomware, but instead just did weird mobile port. The video never said anything about pirating Scott's games, like how this one did. And when the ransomware screen did come up, it was more so like a big after you, the player pursued on the night in between the game, as if the puppet demon did have one last thing that needs to screw you open, or at least the developers believe to the player. I don't know. With FNAF for Hatred Edition, what we know of the story is see better cards Scott's games when the game never claimed to be a Nintendo 3 edition or a modern version. It is literally called Hatred Edition. You'll find that this is a fan-made version, or as I said earlier, a ROM hack of the Nintendo, or whatever you call it for this situation. You see why this just doesn't really work in my opinion? They wanted to do the whole ransomware thing, I get it, but they should learn how to adapt their own did it, and not see anything about pirating Scott's games. But instead just doing it to screw the player and hack the device because it's evil like a creepy custom would. That's like if you downloaded a fan-made FNAF game, such as FNAF at the time, and then got a ransomware message at the end of it saying not to pirate Scott's game, when the game isn't even an official FNAF game, since it's literally a fan-made version of it. I know I'm kind of freaking out about this, but honestly, I apologize, but like, it had so much potential to become a part of the benchmark Stingray, but was just ruined because of that ransomware happening. I'm sure most of you guys disagree with me on that, and honestly, that is okay. And I'm sure some of you guys do agree with everything you said, but honestly, at the end of the day, I just want to see what movies make this. What things that like how it Austin does, and what movies that have the potential to become the next Stingray. As the believability of said things help make the horror feel more real. And this video did a great job at that. It's personally just, it had so much potential and just, I don't know, the ransomware things took it away from me. But for some videos, the believability can make it feel more scary, like how it did for this video. But for some videos, that can be the opposite, just like how it is for that World Ransomware. I don't even know where to start with this video, and honestly, I don't know how to present this one. Currently, while writing the script, this is the only video I've covered where I'm not sure if I should even try to explain it or just show you it. Because the imagery, concept, and idea as a whole is just beyond unexplainable. So I think what I'll do is I'll try to explain what I think this video tries to replicate, and then show you the video while also trying to explain what is going on. Because this video is insanely confusing and makes no sense, and it's just weird. So before I show you it, let me explain what I believe this video is trying to replicate. And simply put, this video looks to replicate a fever dream. Just like the last video, along with some videos we'll be taking a look at after this one, I believe this video would have worked better if it was able to say ransomware, but instead I did it as a fan-made rendition of FNAF World, where we had one like FNAF location. This game does not fit the normal FNAF ransomware formula. It is based on FNAF World, also given in various but this video steps it up by using very strange animations, sonics, and movies to create a dreamlike feel, similar to, well, none of the videos you've ever seen. So in order to understand what I mean, let's dive into the video file. The video starts on the home screen of the uploaded computer, where we can see that they're recording a Candy Cam and that they are running Windows 8, which immediately creates that sense of nostalgia, especially with the classic back image that almost every FNAF fan had on their phone back in 2020. So after shortly being on the screen, they start the game, where we are greeted to immediately create that sense of nostalgia, especially with the classic back image that almost every FNAF fan had on their phone back in 2020. So after shortly being on the screen, they start the game, where we are greeted to a warning screen, which says, "Warning, this game will spawn," before being put into the main menu. Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at here. It checks at the top for character, it says spotted character parameter 1. But underneath it, we can see all the characters that Seth started to completely disappear, considering any facial features, and also being able to see how they work out. The music is also very strange, with it just being an assortment of extremely melodic sounds that make no sense, which can also be heard when you choose your character screen after the player clicks start. So instead of being able to play the character, the player clicks on it to start the game, where before being put into the game, we are put into the loading screen, which is extremely unsettling. While we wait in the loading screen, we are face to face with another extremely distinctive character that says just above it, which means this could be Tifa, but it sure as hell doesn't look like her. Underneath the character, more Russian text is seen, which translates to and the music even continues into the newspaper screen. Now, this happens. Now, even though this is one of the most unique FNAF transfer videos out there, let's take a look at one of my least favorite ones that exist, and that's because it's really not too unique, but it's still unique enough to take a look at, and that's because it's based on FNAF Ultimate Custom Night, with the title being FNAF Ultimate Custom Night Ransomware Official Gameplay. Now, I've said this for a couple previous videos we looked at, but this time I'm just going to show you the full video first, because honestly, this video doesn't need an explanation unlike some of the previous ones, and it's only a minute long, so here it is. I think you guys can see why I didn't feel the need to try to even explain this video, as it honestly isn't anything special. Now, personally, I don't want to sound rude or mean when I say this, but this is probably the worst one on the list. Not because it's inherently bad, but just because it's boring and doesn't make much sense in the context of ransomware. Like, FNAF Ultimate Custom Night is free, so why would you even buy it when you can just go on Steam for free or play it on GameStop? That, along with the fact this video just isn't interesting, nor jump scare or rants in the screen, just makes it boring and kind of a waste of time. At least most of the other videos we looked at had something unique going on or tried different things, even if they failed at trying said things. But this video is literally just gameplay along with the ransomware screen. It's just unoriginal. But I will say that this video did come out around the time the trend started getting popular last year, so I guess that is probably a big reason why this video ended up like this, and just wasn't so good. And because of that, I almost put this in the honorable mentions segment. Now, we just looked at 10 different videos based around the FNAF ransomware trend. It explained all the unique themes, ideas, imagery, storytelling, concepts, and so much more that make these videos good and bad. But there's also a few that don't exactly fit into the FNAF ransomware trend, but are very much so aligned to it through its imagery, ideas, and basically everything else I just mentioned. So now we take a look at 5 honorable mentions that I feel should be taken a look at and appreciated, but just didn't fit into the 10 videos we've already looked at. Some of these videos, as you'll see, take heavy inspiration from FNAF ransomware, or helped create new ideas for the trend, while others fall into their own little micro niche that can too be related to some ideas seen in the trend, like what this first honorable mention we'll be looking at, with that being FNAF 4 Ransomware. This video along with the next are both the exact same idea, but are just way too short and not very related to FNAF Ransomware compared to the videos we previously looked at. This video though is extremely creepy and contains the same imagery seen from FNAF 4 Ransomware, which gives it a surreal vibe, especially since the video is based on FNAF 4, which makes it feel like a nightmare, which is originally what inspired FNAF 4 and what it's based on. But since the video is only 30 seconds, I'm just going to show you it and not really introduce it, so here it is. This video is barely what you could call an FNAF Ransomware video, and is instead more of a recreation of the dream rather than a ransomware, which makes sense, as FNAF Ransomware as a whole was partially inspired by Well-Made Dream. As mentioned at the beginning of this video with 5 Nights at Freddy's Seas, since that video was basically just a recreation of Well-Made Dream. The strange noises, blurriness, and legitimate movement that the character has really sells us on that feeling of dream. The fact you can't point out exact details, 100% blurriness, working out the and the fact that the player isn't running away is helps with that attitude as well, as I'm sure many people in their dreams where they try to learn but just couldn't program this information. So when these things finally happen, you see a tiny bit more detailed version of this space, which is terrifying. All of these things being the feature of the environment, atmosphere, and characters that contribute to the video, as if this video is actually made by the same person, which is highly convicting personally. It's just a few microphones, which honestly help keep everything unique from each other. In this video, we are still in the form. The environment is able to different, with the game just one pixelated situation to the past, which gives it a less of a dreamlike feel. But as we see the player moving around the room, we notice that a face appears on the wall, the Freddy punches in his eyes, and that the next was seemingly normal compared to everything else that we're seeing. But that's when the player looks on the hallway again, where they see an absolutely nightmare version, nightmare from happen. So as the player closes the door, we notice that flashes of nightmare appear on the screen, which leads to the beginning jump scare. As I said, this video is the exact same as the last. That's why I think this video is absolutely love it. And there's another video very similar to that I also want to include the honorable mentions. The Definition of Wisdom, which has the exact same vibe these two videos have, but just from a way more super scale. I'm going to start off by reading the description for this video, as it provides a bit of background information that I guess kind of helps make this video more understandable. This is a weird game I found. I don't really understand it honestly, but I found it interesting. I will say that this description honestly doesn't help make this video that much more understandable. But as I said, it kind of does not really, I don't know what it is.
Now I got one more than I've had. Look at that.
I don't know what to think about. I don't know what to think about it apart from the fact that the imagery is creepy and really different and really scary, and that it's, I don't know, it's probably the best shitpost featured in this entire video. The designs are extremely well made, apart from this strange Mickey one. I mean, I guess that one's good, but I don't know. And I mean, the concept is unique, but I mean, apart from that, I don't even know how to explain this video as like how could I? All I know is that it's unique. I don't know what else to say about it. Since honestly, I just couldn't put into words what I feel about it, what I try to say. There's no words that really explain this video. But I mean, all I can say though is that it's very similar to the previous games we just looked at, except the one we're looking way more concept. So let's take a look at a video as a concept. We're not being highly creative and absolute stingray. This video takes this absolute stingray idea and actually makes it very scary. Is able to live on realistic. The video starts with the player's home screen, stingray icon, insanely nostalgic Minecraft wallpaper in the background. The player starts the game, where we see the FNAF 2 main menu, except that it's a little off, because the text is wrong and the music is more present than is in the usual game. So then the player starts the game, where they see the newspaper screen before getting put into gameplay, where Homer starts immediately after loading in, helping some Sprox and being hurt, while Wither Chica Spawn greeting the Sprox like this. I do have to say that this version is way more aesthetically pleasing to me than the new Stingray video, just because of the Wither Chica hats are shaded on the screen like there is various textures, and honestly the Wither Chica off is a bit unrealistic. The only thing this video does better than the original is having everything go to hell right as the game loads in, because remember, in the original, you have to finish the whole game before you're allowed to interrupt it, which doesn't make much sense. But in this version, everything happens immediately when you load in, which makes way more sense. But regardless, the video is a good configuration, but there's just a little bit too short to be completely honest, so that's why it's a comfort edition, which I think is very fitting. But that brings us to the next video, which I genuinely don't know if I should even include in this video, but I wanted to include it anyways, since I think it kind of fits the overall aesthetics and just vibe of FNAF Ransomware, that being FNAF Secret Screen by FNAF Scream. Now this video is not a FNAF Ransomware video, it has never claimed to be, but is instead an urban legend by the Stingray, which was popularized by a video /image that came out which featured Chris Stingray's footage. The video shows the FNAF community, which afterwards shows an insanely disturbing image which looks to be some humanoid figure staring at the screen. But this was first posted with a complete full secret screen and had this happen to them too. There was a legend that this was a glitch that would only happen on the PS1 version of FNAF 3 and would randomly occur after finishing the game. Now I'm sure you can see why I included this in the video, as it is pretty similar to the idea of FNAF Ransomware, because this screen could have made for a terrifying ransomware screen, but decided to let you know because this is a secret system, there's no claim to this actually working, and that they chose just an image to get the feeling for how it talked, and with the lower resolution to be more scary. This actually got so popular to the point that Enterprise used to recommend the next FNAF Stingray, and it kind of was as the video stated. This urban legend took me through just like Stingray. And with that, that brings me to the final part of this video, which I need your guys' help with. This video was supposed to feature most FNAF Ransomware videos and games, but got way too long to be able to fit all. So if you guys want a part 2 of just deep dives into FNAF Ransomware fan games, then like the video and let me know in the comments. One This is 5 Nights at Freddy's Ransomware, one of FNAF's most popular and scary trends ever made. But what even is it? Is it even real? And how did we get here? Well, if you're brand new to the FNAF franchise, or if you are a veteran to it, FNAF Ransomware is a completely different community that will not many know what it's actually about. Or at least that's what I would say, if not for one specific thing. See, 5 months ago, I made a video going over around 15 different pieces of FNAF ransomware related content, all of video form. And ever since that original video was made, things have changed. Because unlike that video where I just go over FNAF ransomware videos, This time, we'll be going over FNAF Ransomware games. So I would highly recommend watching that video first if you haven't seen it already, especially if you are unaware of what FNAF Ransomware is, as that video isn't just a deep dive into the trends, various videos, but is instead also an in-depth explanation into everything related to FNAF Ransomware itself. But if you already have seen it, and just a quick recap, then that's why in this video I'm going to be explaining and going over all the new information regarding this mysterious trend. Like if it is slowly dying off, if it's still scary, and most importantly, if it still stands out from the rest of the various other FNAF trends from the past, along with so much more. But in order to go over all that, we'll first be looking at over 4 different FNAF Ransomware games, such as games that quote-unquote hack your PC, alongside games that do other terrifying things. But I am getting ahead of myself. So with how much we have to go over in this video, I knew I wouldn't be able to do it alone. So that's why I asked for some help from the TikToker Mrs. Virus to help me research and narrate some parts of this video, which only seemed fitting since her specialty is all things viruses. But anyways, if you need something to put on in the background while you work, study, or even while you drift to sleep, all while simultaneously learning about some of FNAF's scary speeches and gameplay content, then this is the perfect video to do. But with all that finally out of the way, now I have to ask the question, what are FNAF Ransomware games?
Ransomware games spawned from the Five Nights at Freddy's ransomware trend as a whole. Obviously, various themes, ideas, and concepts from the trend and combine them to create an extremely immersive experience for the player, which replicate real viruses, malware, ransomware, and so on, making the player believe that the game itself is a genuine virus. With FNAF ransomware being a subgenre of digital horror, it was no surprise that due to its premise and unusual idea, it inevitably got popular, with it only continuing to rise with the creation of fan-made videos which featured supposed fake, pirated, and hacked versions of FNAF games. So as more content began to spread about this trend online, it was only a matter of time until you'd see people make fan games based on these videos, or even see people create their own distinct iterations of the idea itself. This is the foundation for what these games stand upon, and within the past year, there have been dozens of these fan games with varying degrees of success, quality, and uniqueness that help continue the evolution of not just this craze, but the evolution of Five Nights at Freddy's as a whole, especially when it comes to its fan games. However, the premise, themes, and idea of FNAF Ransomware as a whole looks completely different than it once did, changing into something almost completely separate from what it used to be. But not everything did change, as Fred One's FNAF Ransomware is an endgame based on the very pieces of concept regarding this trend, as it features a lot of the same things that were seen in those early videos, with notably including inspiration from this game being Five Nights at Freddy's Sadie's, also known as FNAF 1 ransomware, which got extremely popular for the disturbing and surreal imagery seen, alongside the fact that this video was the first FNAF ransomware video ever made.
Alongside the game, you can see the text that the application may be a virus and suggests to not play the game, which when you find the already disturbing shortcut icon, we are immediately told from our instincts to just go to the game and move on. But if you click run anyway, this is what we'll get into. This is the first thing you see when you load into the game. You get a warning message with incorrect spelling and grammar that says, warning. This game contains flashing lights and loud noises. Beware. Before being put to the main menu. From the main menu text to the title to the Freddy on the screen. From just this main menu alone, we are given the impression that first of all, we should be playing this game, and second of all, this game was being poorly put together. As you see him contemplating on whether you should continue to play, Freddy looks at you with an unrelenting stare, almost giving off the impression that you have no choice but to continue to play, which when combined with the distorted menu music, gives off an extreme sense that it is already too late to go back. So as you continue to explore the menu, you may click the settings, which when clicked on disappears and is replaced with strange characters that can't be made out, which doesn't happen for these options. As you click on them, well, they start the night. After you click either start or play next, you will be loaded into night 1, where upon loading in, you'll spawn into the office, except that it is extremely pixelated and glitched out. And when you look to both your sides, you realize that there are no door or light buttons, which leaves you completely defenseless from whatever floor is high within the game. But at least you get the camera, which isn't exactly the best, but it is better than nothing. When looking at the cameras, there are always available to you, with those seemingly being left in red hall, along with, well, what looks to be a middle hall, where we eventually see an animatronic that looks like a mix between Freddy and Golden Freddy appear. But within no time, this strange version of Freddy makes his way closer to the fist, where within just seconds he appears right outside of your door, where we can do nothing but just staring at him, waiting for the inevitable. Once the inevitable jump scare finally happens, we get a better look at this version of Freddy, where during the jump scare, he now has eyeballs which to be one crowd, as you are able to see a black outline around him which wasn't seen on the cameras. After the jump scare happens, we see something strange. We see a Bible quote which says in Proverbs 22, treasures of wickedness are tempted, but righteousness delivereth from death. Unlike other pieces of Netflix where content that feature Bible quotes, this one is actually real and original with the prophets and even Christmas. This quote states that treasures have no lasting value, while a righteous life brings deliverance from death, which emphasizes that wealth gained through dishonest actions hurts wealth and importantly, wicked means is ultimately useless, but living a morally upright life provides true lasting security, which in the eyes of most can be seen as true wealth. This all leads back to something briefly mentioned in the first Neverance movie I made, with that being the meanings of goodness were presented in silly pieces of content, which I'd rather not get into again as it is all explained in that video, but the fact this quote was used in this game wasn't just done for no reason, as the quote itself has significant meaning for the premise of FNAF ransomware, which when looked at in the eyes of someone purchasing games for free, instead of paying for them, it can be seen as a compelling trigger given through wickedness, while typically paying for it for being morally correct life, which ultimately provides the righteousness and deliverance to death. Put in layman's terms, it basically means you are willing to quote unquote sell their soul, and are willing to be a good considering being. Which again, when put in terms of the overall foundation of how ransomware works, it means you should have bought the damn game and you wouldn't be put in this situation. Anyways though, after the screen ends, you will be brought back to the main menu, except some things are coming different, such as Freddy now having blood on him while also looking even more disturbed, and that there is only one button now, but that being hit right next to it. Also, if you listen closer to the audio, it is now noticeably way more choppy, with it consistently glitching out, almost as if the application itself is lagging. But with nothing else to click on but the screen, there is only one thing to do, with that being to play the next night. Once loaded into night 2, we see that nothing has changed. The office is still the same, the cameras are the same, and everything looks to be in order, except for one thing. Where is Freddy? Unlike Night 1, Freddy is nowhere to be seen, but that seems to be the same problem, because if you listen closely, you can start to faintly hear what sounds like either crying or laughing or something in the background. But when you go to a quick source of the sounds and cameras, that's when this happens. See it for a second, and during an playthrough, it would go by too fast to notice. But when slowing down the footage, that's when it becomes easily apparent on what it is, of it being some kind of golden Freddy teddy bear with a divine-like face, which after disappearing leads to a golden Freddy jump scare, which is equally as bad as the first jump scare. Right after this jump scare, we are shown yet again another Bible quote, Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat the vomit, which goes hand in hand with what the player just did. This quote is a bit more simple, and is way easier to understand, as this proverb uses a disgusting and nauseating image to highlight how fools will stubbornly make the same mistakes, even after getting consequences. So just like how a dog returns to its vomit, we have two return for another night, knowing what consequences lie ahead. So with this in mind, we should now get to problem. game for sure was the second game on control. As from that point onward, you lost all access to move around or do anything, because this night was different. No cameras, no moving, no anything. Just you paralyzed as the ransomware begins to take over, where within just seconds your computer blue screens and then this screen appears. Oops. This copy of Five Nights at Freddy's lies as the ransomware begins to take over, where within just seconds your computer blue screens and then this screen appears. Oops. This copy of Five Nights at Freddy's is now authorized for use. By attempting to play this pirated copy of our game, you are violating copyright law and disrespecting the artwork of Mr. Gotham. Fred and his friends don't talk kindly to those who don't play by the rules. As a punishment for your crime, your files are to be deleted permanently. 2 hours remain. This is the end of the game, and honestly, it was one of the more enjoyable experiences I had when researching games for this video, as it was more of just that, an experience, rather than a full game, and it acted very similarly to what was seen in the early pieces of FNAF ransomware content posted onto YouTube. As mentioned before I got into this game, this was without a doubt inspired from Friday Night at Freddy's scene, which would explain the surreal imagery, terrible gameplay mechanics, and Bible quotes, as these are all things seen in that video which helps build onto the already disturbing concept behind it. Unfortunately though, this was the only game featured in this video that is similar in concept to that video, as the rest are more modern takes on the idea, except for one, with that being FNAF 3 Weird Mobile Port.
Now, if you watched the first video posted onto this channel, you would immediately recognize this name, as this name is very similar to one of the videos talked about in that one, with that specific video being titled Five Nights at Freddy's Weird Mobile Port, as this game takes heavy inspiration from that piece of content and adds upon it using FNAF 3 as the base for a continuation of the story seen in the original video. So for a quick recap regarding to the story for FNAF Weird Mobile Port, the player seemingly got dragged into hell and stumbled upon what they assumed to be a safe haven, which turns out isn't the case. So after surviving against hellish versions of FNAF animatronics, a ransomware screen appears and then the game ends, which now leads to this fan-made continuation of the story seen in FNAF 3 Weird Mobile Port. There are 2 videos online which help continue the story even more than the actual games themselves do. So that's what we're going to be looking at instead of the actual gameplay, plus also me and Gavin could not beat the game and got stuck on the first night. So that's also another reason. But the videos show the exact same gameplay that is featured in the actual game, so it doesn't really matter. When starting the game, you load into a very low-quality main menu screen, which features an image of Springtrap with a creepypasta-esque face pasted over alongside some text, where when translated from Russian to English it says, "Last Layer of Hell." This insinuates that this is the final game in the series of weird mobile ports, but is also contradicted by the title of the first game, which was called Endless Hell with Freddy, which means that we shouldn't exactly trust what is being seen throughout these games. Plus, I mean, they're literally ransomware, so why would you? Apart from those things, that's all there really is to the main menu. The music is still the same from the first one, and you are presented with 2 buttons, those of which being Initiate and No, with Initiate being the only button that works.
You managed to escape the beast, but you know it's searching for you. Starving. You run into the abyss. You beg for forgiveness as you believe all hope is lost. The thick fog starts dissipating. You are able to see a building in the distance.
This is the prologue to this game, and when compared to the first game, this helps us give a brief explanation of what happened after the events seen within FNAF 3 Mobile Port. The beast it is referring to seems to be the puppet creature that was seen near the end of the night within the first game, which attacked and moved at ungodly speeds, but was able to defeat the player. This intro cutscene describes how you are now put into the shoes of the protagonist right after those final moments in the original, where you are now running for your life, begging for forgiveness until you stumble upon a building in the darkness, which is called Fazbear Frights. This finally leads us into the gameplay, where we noticed a lot of strange things, like that the posters in most of the offices distorted and the box box animatronic parts being completely blacked out, along with so much more which you can see for yourself. We also noticed that the hallway is empty until a flash of light appears, showing the FNAF 2 office for some reason, which when flashed makes the FNAF 2 flashlight noise, which makes the noise meter go up. But upon looking at the cameras, we see a lot of the same distortions that we seen in the office, but no sign of any animatronics or any strange like that was seen in the original FNAF Weird Normal Board video. That's when all of a sudden an alarm goes off, similarly to what happens when a malfunction happens in FNAF 3, where the player goes to the other monitor to fix whatever is setting off the alarm. Which is hard to tell as all of the text is in Russian, which when translated from top to bottom says hallway lighting, sound system, which is what currently malfunctioning, and camera system. After fixing the malfunction, the player looks at the cameras again, where we now see what appears to be a hellish version of Springtrap staring right back at us. Upon seeing this, the player switches to another camera to use an audio alert as a distraction, which works, and moves Springtrap further to what presumably would be the office, since the cameras don't say where it is. But almost immediately after the player is able to lure Springtrap further into the building, they decide to close one of the vents, but right after, all hell breaks loose.
Now, this is actually how the gameplay plays out for the most part, as during the first night, this is what it will look like, and it plays very similar to how FNAF 3 does. Just lure Springtrap away from the office, fix any malfunctions, and avoid the phantom animatronics, because even though this video didn't show off everything, the game itself actually features all of the phantoms except for Balloon Boy. The only thing that isn't featured in this gameplay is the text pop-ups, as those are only seen in the video, but this funny pop-up can actually happen during normal gameplay, which is fitting for the game. But this isn't the end of FNAF 3 Miracle Report, because even though I wasn't able to finish it, there are still 2 more acts within the game, which too have videos showing what is seen in gameplay. So let's finally look at the rest of the game.
After beating Night 1, you will be taken back to the main menu, which now looks a bit different, as everything is now red. There's no sound, and you're only given one choice. That means to click Initiate and move forward, which when doing so, this happens.
Record your steps in that game. You think it might be a strategy to ambush you? But your body is giving up. Your eyes begin to close. And your nightmares awaken.
except that this version of FNAF 3 now has FNAF 4 implemented into it, which seemingly was done to fit the narrative, as before being put into the gameplay, it mentions how the protagonist begins to fall asleep and how their nightmares begin to awaken. This segment of the game honestly feels the most unsettling, as you are no longer bound within the confines of FNAF 3, and this proves to us that this game is doing whatever the hell it wants. Being put into the same environment as FNAF 4, especially with the heavy themes of surreal imagery, it comes together to combine that the theories of FNAF 4 being a dream, along with the strange liminal imagery to make something extremely uncanny. The way the game looks, along with the way it sounds, plays, and presents itself, really dives deep to make you think, what the hell is going on? But we aren't alone in that sentiment, as shortly after the player encounters a hellish version of Nightmare Bonnie, text added in from the uploader appears on the screen, which shows us that they are also confused of what is happening. But then, if we were confused enough, a quick time event appears on the screen, where the player has to sync the heartbeats with the one in the middle, all while being watched by a humanoid version of Freddy. After this ends, we then see the player end off against a hellish version of Nightmare Foxy, before again being faced with another quick time event until this happens. I don't think I need to explain what we just saw, but to sum it up shortly, the player was randomly teleported back to FNAF 1 Weird Mobile Port, where immediately upon being teleported, they get attacked from the demonic version of the puppet, along with the demonic version of Freddy Quick Time Event until somehow the clock hits 6 a.m. Now you might think that this is the end, finally, and again, you would be wrong, because even though the player survived the night, if you were to load the game again, well, I'll have the uploader explain.
So that was very weird. I don't know why that happened, so I tried to play it again. But while playing, I noticed it was different again. As you can see, my control panel thingy is missing. So I had to grab it from the camera. The rest of the night is normal until 4 a.m. After seeing the timer, I am pretty sure I downloaded a virus. Foxy also appears this time. 4 a.m. was weird, and I knew there was something horribly wrong with this game, but I wanted to keep playing. So 5 a.m. happened, and I did not like it.
And just like that, that is the end of FNAF 3 Weird Mobile Port. There's not really much to say about this game, as a lot of it is self-explanatory, especially if you watch the original FNAF Weird Mobile Port video. Even though we looked at two different videos about this game, the actual game itself is nearly identical. It plays out the exact same way as these videos did, except that the game itself has a lot more features within it that were not shown in these videos, such as more jump scares with the animatronics, along with so much more that I couldn't get footage of due to me not being able to finish the game, especially near the end, as there is so much more to the actual game that makes it way more terrifying. Playing through the FNAF 4 section and then playing the FNAF 3 section at the end has got to be terrifying, especially when seeing the countdown timer along with the button on your screen. Actively attempting to survive this night, especially as the countdown timer nears closer to zero, along with seeing the building catch on fire right in front of you while Springtrap tries to break into your office, is pure nightmare fuel. But eventually the screen goes black, and you are saved by a ransomware screen that appears, which is similar to the one from the original FNAF mobile port video. Even though this isn't technically an official sequel to that original video, it still continues the story, and integrates the same imagery into this new concept extremely well. But this isn't the only FNAF ransomware fan game to do this, as 5 also takes a lot of different elements seen from this trend and combines them to create a similar experience, except with a lot more details and features, along with an unusually unique story, which is added upon in a sequel, but we'll get to that soon. When starting up 5, the window opens showing the normal FNAF warning screen, except that this version is glitched out and features a new warning at the bottom which mentions that this game has a lot of flashing lights, and that this game shouldn't be played if you are epileptic, before being brought to the main menu. Unlike the other games we have looked at, this main menu is, well, normal, at least at first glance. The text is normal, the title is normal, Freddy is normal, hell, everything is normal, except when you look closer, because this version is missing the typical Scott Cawthon trademark on the bottom corner of the screen, and when looking even closer, this menu is also missing the correct version number for the game, as FNAF 1 is in version 1.132, and not just version 1. But even though some things are off, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Sure, when loading into the game, it's a little buggy, as the newspaper screen doesn't lead to a night 1 and 12 AM text screen, and when finally getting into the office, there is no power or sound for the most part. But things don't get any better when opening cameras, because when they are open, we see that not all of the cameras are available to us, as some of them are completely unavailable or glitched out. But that's until this happens. That was weird, and it just crashed again. I was kind of expecting it to do some spooky ransomware pop-up screen like the rest of the games have, but I guess not. When reading the crash message, this is what it says. Unknown crash. Couldn't find Chica.xml in the game files, 5.exe, which doesn't make much sense because they were right there, but oh well, let's try again. Strange, it crashed again and gave a different message this time. But the main menu was different this time. Text was missing and Freddy was all glitched out. But I mean, it was probably like that because of the missing files. Like how this new error message states, unknown crash, missing files. Please specify file origin or contact Scott Cawthon. Well, I don't know what files it wants me to specify, and I don't know how to get in contact with Scott. So maybe if I try to play it again, it will fix itself. Why did the menu change again? Why is Freddy red, and why does it only say 5? I don't know, but maybe it'll fix itself when I load in the gameplay. What the hell just happened? Okay, I gotta keep investigating this to see what is going on. The game didn't even pop up this time. Do I want to play a game? What the hell is this? Jigsaw trap? What am I in a Saw movie? What is even going on? Okay, this is the final time I will try to play this garbage game. This is 5. Finally, after all of those fake outs, this is the real deal. And before we can even load into the game, there's a couple things we need to talk about first. Again, for the rest of this video, there will be flashing lights along with various other things that may not be suitable for people who are epileptic. So please take this as your official warning. Also, make sure to subscribe if you love Five Nights at Freddy's or spooky gaming video essays just like this. As if you enjoyed this video, you will enjoy the rest of my channel. Anyways, I just had to get that out of the way, but now let's get into the gameplay of 5. In the menu of 5, we see 2 buttons, with those both being Nightmare and Guide, where upon clicking on Nightmare, we are taken to a screen similar to the FNAF 2 arcade machine cutscenes, where we play as a white character sprite similar to the purple guy one in the actual FNAF franchise. As you move around, you will eventually stumble upon a house hidden within the woods, where in order to enter, you need to find the key. So eventually when you do find the key, you are able to enter, where upon doing so, you will be greeted with this: Midnight 8. A laborer is worthy of his wages. Luke 10:7, Timothy 5:18. Now, just like the Bible quotes I talked about earlier, I don't think I need to explain what this means, but I will do it anyway just in case you weren't paying attention or just somehow don't understand what it means. Simply put, this means the worker is worthy of their pay, which when put in the context of Five Nights at Freddy's, means that the night guard deserves fair compensation for their efforts and time at work, which they aren't given, seen by the various paychecks given to the player after completing the game. This is the only religious symbolism in this game, and honestly it feels a bit unnecessary with all things considered, until I looked a bit deeper into this game, as this quote actually plays into the overall story of the game itself, and helps add on to the narrative. You see, this game's game tool page actually features some extra information that I missed upon first glance, and almost completely forgot to add into this video, but upon looking deeper into this page, there's actually a small section titled Story, which says this: You're the FNAF 1 night guard, heading home after surviving 7 long nights. But things aren't okay. He's hallucinating, and it might lead to his death. He can't handle seizures very well. This sets up the foundation and also explains the gameplay event, which we are about to see. This didn't need to be included into the game, as I think the game itself works pretty well without a story, but this extra piece of information helps us understand what we are seeing a little bit more, without taking away from the horror itself. But I only found out about this after the fact, so even without knowing the story, the experience still worked and was equally as terrifying. After this screen though, we are finally put into actual gameplay, where we are put directly in the middle of a dark hallway, and are given a door and a camera to survive with. You can't move to the sides, but you can look behind you, where you will see a window which is illuminated with a flashlight to look around with, along with a battery that drains extremely fast, meaning you shouldn't look behind you unless absolutely necessary. But then looking back in the hallway, we see the cameras, where upon opening it, we only see a map, along with a brown dot, which shows us where Freddy is, and if he is close to us. This is strange, because with such limited mobility and visibility, where are the rest of the animatronics? Well, let's take a look back at the main menu again, and let's look at the guide, as this gives us all the information we need in order to survive against the animatronics. Now, this game has pretty simple mechanics, and honestly is pretty fun when you get the hang of it. But if you started the game without looking at the guide, then you would be screwed, as this game has very unique mechanics that are unlike any other FNAF fan game I've seen or played, but that could just be because I barely played any FNAF fan games. Freddy is probably the easiest. Whenever he appears in front of you, you close the door and listen for his footsteps. Bonnie is a bit more difficult, but whenever he appears, turn around and stare at the window until you hear him leave. Foxy is again a little bit difficult. Whenever he appears, open your camera as fast as you can until he leaves. But Chica is, in my opinion, the easiest to remember, but the hardest to deal with, as during gameplay, you need to listen for her humming sound, and when you hear it, you need to turn around as fast as possible and click on her. Now, these alone aren't hard to deal with, but at first, you'll probably misremember what to do for each character, and will probably die, especially if you consume all of your flashlight battery, as if it reaches empty, you will not be able to click on Chica. These mechanics ultimately lead to a pretty enjoyable gameplay loop, with the only con of it being that if you master these mechanics, the game will get pretty boring pretty quick. But on your first couple of attempts, you may end up like this. this game will open up things on your computer that you probably don't want it to, such as Google Notepad. When you die, your computer will begin tweaking out, where as that happens, the Notepad app will open a note called Sinner, where the text within it says, "The laborer is worthy of his wages," over and over again. Then, while that happens, Google will open a GIF that shows what looks to be a door. I genuinely have no clue what this is or what this is supposed to be. So if anyone in the comments knows what this is supposed to symbolize, then please let me know because I have no clue. Anyways, once you eventually get used to the gameplay mechanics, the night will go smoothly, up until about 5 a.m., where a new enemy will appear, with that being Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy doesn't seem to do anything except distract the player, but if you can survive literally 30 seconds of this, then you will survive the night and it will hit 6 a.m.
Good job, Kevin. It wasn't that hard, you may think. For you, it wasn't. People spend so much of their lives crafting and polishing therapeutic experiences for everyone to enjoy. And then people like you will appreciate it and give value to it and use so my hours of work. You did not pay for the work I just did. This may come as something narcissistic to say, but you're such a scumbag. You have 10 seconds to write an apology. Do it.
And with that, that is 5. Regardless of if you grant an apology or not, this ending will mostly stay the same. The game will glitch out and will quote-unquote attempt to access your files, microphone, and webcam. After this, you will be provided a custom night mode, where you can attempt to achieve the rest of the stars that are featured in the main menu. But you have to have super speed in order to beat the max mode because you need to have insane reflexes in order to survive, so good luck getting that finished. This game blends both FNAF Ransomware along with an original story to blend the lore of FNAF 1 into this game, all while acting as a piece of malware in your computer, which helps heighten the experience for the game. But we still aren't done yet, and we can't stop talking about this game just yet, because this story isn't over, as this game has a sequel titled Knights, where we loosely continue the story from this game and continue to dive deeper into the laborer who is worthy of his wages.
This game may be a sequel to the first, but a lot of things are different this time around. So, since we have a basic understanding of what to expect, let's go over the story first before we delve into the game itself.
It's 2014. This year, the first Five Nights at Freddy's was released. You quickly fell in love with the game and played it until you practically done everything there was to do. You thought that was the end. But shortly after, a sequel was announced. Excited, you started searching for information online and talking with others about it. But then, a small feeling began to grow inside of you. Anxiety. You simply couldn't wait for the game to release. You couldn't stand months and months of silence. Desperate, you get on your PC and started looking for links or beta versions. After hours of searching, you stumbled upon a strange website claiming to have the FNAF 2 beta build, and without thinking twice, you downloaded it. Now, it's time to face the consequences of your actions.
Now, this synopsis is completely different from the one the first game had, as this now puts you into the shoes of someone who downloaded a virus unknowingly, and honestly, it helps build onto the immersion way more than the first one did. Imagine this real quick. You're in elementary school and FNAF 2 just released, but you don't have any money or a computer to buy the game. So instead you play the demo, except that after some time, the demo just isn't cutting it anymore. And you now search for a free version, which upon discovering one, you realize it's far too late that it's a virus. This is an experience many people have had, especially as gullible kids. So why not base the game off of something similar? I mean, even though it may not be the most realistic, it still immerses you enough to the point where you can imagine yourself being in that situation, which is all that matters. So with this in mind, let's finally take a look at the game itself. When starting the game, we first get a message saying,
This game is better with the lights off and in silence.
Before me giving a continue button to press. This isn't at all what the warning in FNAF 2 looks like, which should already be throwing people off, as the warning in 5 was for the most part the same exact as FNAF 1's. But that's when we load in, and we realize that this is quite literally the same menu as FNAF 2 demo, so maybe what we downloaded is actually legit? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna waste your time. This shit is just as messed up as the first one, so let me make this quick. The gameplay is very similar to 5, where we can interact with the office along with the cameras, except that some things are missing, like most of the camera buttons. But that's until eventually during the night this happens. Well, compared to the last game, that wasn't that bad. All we had to do was just flash a spooky, distorted version of Withered Chico, which inevitably led to a glitchy jump scare. So now all we need to do is just keep loading the game until we get to the actual good stuff. You did this? I do not. What do you mean, look around? Whatever. Let's just start it again. What the fuck? Who the hell are you? What the hell do you want with me? Yes. How is this happening? No. How the hell do you know that? intro to Nights, and let's just say it knows how to make an impression. As it will tell you where you live, tell you your name, and also connect to your microphone and webcam just to play it back to you. The intro can play differently depending on your answers, but for the most part, it still leaves a lasting impact regardless of what you choose. After this intro, though, you will be taken to the main menu, which looks similar to the 5 menu, except with a few rearrangements. This time we see an Act 1, 2, and 3 button, along with 2 stars instead of 3. But there is also one more thing that is hidden in plain sight, with that being a hidden guide menu. Because unlike the first game, this one hides it from you. But we'll get to that in a moment here, because first, let's take a look at Act 1. Is the first thing we see before being able to move around. This is almost the exact same sequence as the one from 5, where you need to find a key in order to enter the building, which will lead to the night itself.
Hi. Are you still there? Look, you probably already know the situation you're currently in. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to spend any more time talking to you. You stink so much that I can feel it through my screen. Like, really. So, maybe I'll call you once in a while just to say some random shit. You're currently in Act 1. Genuinely, the first night is never usually that bad in any game. That's what's it. Yeah. I can't really lie. I didn't really feel like making a hot act when I first made Act 1, so for now, get some popcorn, sit and relax while your PC is probably being used to like bitcoins.
This is definitely a change, that's for sure. I don't think I need to explain what is different, as I am sure it is quite self-explanatory. But there are some things that do need to be mentioned, such as the gameplay mechanics. This game is way more in-depth, as the overall gameplay itself has been completely revamped. Now, instead of a singular hallway, we now have a left and right hall we need to check using a flashlight, a vent over our head, and a music box we need to wind, located behind us. We also have functional cameras now, which accurately shows most of the animatronics and their location to us. Act 1 is pretty easy, as all you need to do to survive is to go against the toy animatronics, which I think we should go over now. Each character in this game has unique functions and mechanics, making it extremely difficult to survive against during early playthroughs, and this is why Act 1 functions almost as a tutorial. Toy Freddy is one of the most aggressive animatronics, and when looking at him through the cameras, he must not be staring for long, as it agitates him and makes him progress towards the office faster, where you must use the mask on him to make him leave. Toy Bonnie and Chica are the same. Whenever they approach you either your left or right hall, you will be given a visual cue, where you must enter it and flash them until they leave. Mangle, on the other hand, just covers the camera, making it harder to see. Then obviously the puppet works the same way from FNAF 2, just find the box and make sure it stays wound up. If you can survive against all of this, Act 1 will be complete, and you will be brought back to the main menu, where if you click on the guide again, you will see that there are more animatronics you need to learn. This is where things get more difficult, as you will need to remember more specific details to survive against these new animatronics. Withered Freddy will appear in your office, where his eyes will either glow or not, and depending on if they are not, you will either have to use your mask against him or stare at him until he leaves. Withered Bonnie acts the same as Bonnie from 5. Whenever he appears, you just need to leave the room till he leaves. Withered Chica will appear in the left hall, where you need to use the mask on her until she leaves. Then there's Withered Foxy, which is easy to survive against, but is extremely annoying to deal with. He will tell you where he is located, and you will have to go find him and follow him until he leaves. So if he appears behind you, you will hear him say his location, where you must go in order to not get jump scared. He can stay at a location or move to different ones for an extended period of time, which makes him the most tedious to deal with, especially during stressful situations. But with all of this in mind, you should be able to survive against them all just fine.
What's happening?
Is the first thing we see before being able to move around yet again. Except something is different now. We are now inside of a house. I think it's easy to see what these scenes are portraying, but let's not spoil the surprise just yet. Once you're done exploring, you can leave the house to begin Act 2.
Finish the first act. Good job, I guess. So, like I said before, the first night is never usually that bad. There, expect things to be pleasant. You actually have describe you as being fun. I just decided to put a guide up in the chat, so you don't have to go through the same thing.
Two is a little bit more difficult, but if you are able to manage your resources correctly, you will do just fine. But since the night plays out in the same as Act 1, we'll just move on to Act 3. Looking at the guide here provides us with even more information regarding 3 more animatronics, with those being Endo, Golden Freddy, and Balloon Boy. These are some of the easier ones to deal with, as these animatronics are more annoying rather than dangerous. Endo will attack you from the ceiling then, where whenever you hear him approach, you must shine your flashlight at him until he leaves. Golden Freddy will make an audio cue, where he must be found on the cameras and clicked on in order to prevent his attack. Balloon Boy is interesting, as the action figure of him on the desk will make noise, preventing you from using your flashlights. So whenever he activates, you must click him to re-enable your flashlights. So with all of this in mind, let's not waste any more time and let's move on to Act 3.
Light my thirst.
Is again the first thing we see before being able to move, but something is different this time. The text is spread out, the screen is wavy, and we are back in the forest again. So when exploring the forest for an exit, that's when we stumble upon someone pancake.
The last act. Oh, fucking up. Look, dumbass. If you haven't noticed by now, there are some new animatronics. Also, the other animatronics really excellent attention. Really. I don't think you're fucking actually paying attention. Such a mess here. Oh, okay. Yeah, there is definitely something going on. Just gonna tell you now that there's still a lot left to learn.
Well, this is almost it. All we need to do is finish this night, and the game is over.
You really think you beat the game? You didn't even get close. Reopen the game.
Okay, that is strange. Let's reopen the game then. Oh, okay, well, I might have lied to you guys, because there is a secret Act 4 for the game. And honestly, I don't think words will do it justice, so I'll just show it to you.
consider living. Because if you're so addicted to a computer to the point where you literally can't get off it, even with malware, you should just, I don't know, do something else. It's not like, well, that's still kind of impressed by how much of a dimension you there. Anyway, you want to finish the thing. So, every story needs an end, right? So let me set up something real quick here. I would put the last thing before, so it should be a little bit more.
Is this my home? It doesn't feel like it. Is this really where I've lived? It's strange. I feel strange. My hands, they're burning. My feet are burning. I can't move my eyes. I can't breathe, and yet I still live. I am seeing lights. They are dancing like angels in the sky. Should I look away? My eyes are burning.
And with that, that is Nights. This game, or should I say, these games, are truly unique. From the story they tell, the characters they feature, and the mechanics seen throughout, they are definitely something no other FNAF ransomware game has been able to pull off. After finishing Nights, you are given a custom night option, where you are able to complete custom challenges for various rewards, which can be seen on your desk. Apart from this though, this is all the game features after completion.
Now, these games may not be the best or the most interesting, but they all feature unique character designs, concepts, mechanics, and so much more that set them apart from other FNAF fan games. And even though me and Mrs. Virus weren't able to look at every single tiny detail and thing that were featured in these games, we weren't able to look at all the important things that make these games stand out from the rest. There's a lot of other FNAF ransomware games I would have loved to go over, but due to people beating me to them, and due to the quantity of FNAF ransomware games out there, that would have been nearly an impossible task for me to do alone, as this video would have been like, I don't know, over 10 hours if I decided to do that. But I think these 4 games give a good look into the trend as a whole, and give us a good glimpse of the various different iterations people have made of it, which helps cultivate the idea to make it become what it was once known for, which at the root of it is the horror behind it. But you see, time has passed, and over the past year, this trend has slowly begun to die and wither away, being replaced with new trends, which ultimately continues the cycle. But unlike other trends, this one is different. This one created a lasting impact on the community, and the reason why is because, well, it was different. It was unique, and it turned something already terrifying into something even more terrifying. As I mentioned in the first part of this video, and in the last one, FNAF ransomware isn't about improving the idea of FNAF. It's about turning it into something completely different, which is by turning it into nostalgic horror. There are certainly other names for this subgenre, and there is definitely other subgenres that could be attributed to this one. But the overall idea behind nostalgic horror is that the horror presented blends fear with elements of childhood memories, retro aesthetics, and other familiar media and things of the past. The reason it exists and is effective is because of its ability to transform and twist these innocent and comforting feelings given to us from these nostalgic things into something uncanny and eerie. Taking what we know as familiar and then distorting it into the unfamiliar is what makes it so effective, such as the idea of FNAF as a whole, turning a fun childhood memory of, I don't know, let's say going to Chuck E. Cheese, and then flipping it on its head to turn those comforting memories of Chuck E. Cheese into the complete opposite, which is why the franchise itself blew up. And the same thing could be said with FNAF ransomware as well. The ability to use your own thoughts and potential fears you once had as a child of things that now seem irrational makes it a compelling and almost universal type of horror that almost everyone can relate to. As kids, whether if we had our own PCs or borrowed our parents, we knew that if we broke it, we would be in huge trouble, and that there would be consequences if anything were to happen to it. So, due to things like that, this trend subconsciously gave us this feeling that we all felt as kids, just by delving into the nooks and crannies of, well, our own subconscious, using our own memories to remind us of what we feared most as children. The overall ability to use your own thoughts and fears you once had as a child of things that now seem irrational makes it a compelling and almost universal type of horror that almost everyone can relate to. And Mrs. Virus agrees.
FNAF ransomware is honestly one of the most exhilarating and creepiest things I've looked into. It's literally real ransomware themed around Five Nights at Freddy's, which of course already makes it unsettling. But here's the thing. Not every FNAF ransomware out there is actually legit. A lot of them are hoaxes or fan-made recreations. But honestly, even the fan-made ones are still really well done and portray that same analog horror aspect. Legit FNAF ransomware tricks you by pretending to be something harmless until it's already too late. Even the fake or fan versions of FNAF ransomware still lean into that concept as well, making it terrifying, yet leaving you desperate to know what happens next. It's taking something familiar and twisting it into something way darker. And honestly, that mix of terror and excitement is exactly why I love talking about it.
But now that fear of this concept has begun to fade, which has led to the trend as a whole fading with it, as what made it popular was everything we mentioned, but also the elusiveness to it. Now there are dozens of videos and games online showing off these quote-unquote viruses. But at first, us viewers didn't know if they were fake or not. But as time passed, we just sort of knew what to expect with them, which made it boring. Some games and videos, like Five Nights at Freddy's CD and FNAF 1 Weird Mobile Port, were great examples of revolutionizing the trend and keeping it on its toes. But even those games got old, regardless of the impact they had on the trend and community as a whole. As of November of 2025, this is where FNAF ransomware stands, a soon to be forgotten trend within the FNAF community. And only time will tell if this will change. But for now, this seemingly is the end of FNAF ransomware. But there is one more thing I want to mention. On screen right now is another deep dive into one of FNAF's most creepy, obscure ransomware games ever made, which came out before all of these ones did, called Five Nights at Freddy.